disorder. This presentation includes the definition, the etiology, the pathophysiology, the clinical features, complications, the various investigations, and the management of gastroesophageal reflux disorder. What is gastroesophageal reflux disorder? According to the Montreal Consensus Panel, it is a condition which develops when the reflux of stomach contents causes troublesome symptoms and or complications. What does troublesome mean? Patient has to decide when reflux interferes with the lifestyle of the patient. Why do we care so much about reflux? Patients experience about reflux symptoms. About 44% of the patient experience reflux symptoms monthly, about 20% weekly, and about 4 to 7% experience symptoms daily. It is the most common gastrointestinal diagnosis on outpatient physician visits. The frequency and severity does not predict the esophagitis, stricture, or cancer development. Let's see about the gastroesophageal junction first. It is the junction between the stomach and the esophagus, basically wherein the esophagus becomes the stomach. These diagrams show the various relations of the gastroesophageal junction to the surrounding structures. What are the various mechanisms which prevent gastroesophageal reflux disorder? It is the esophageal sphincter tone and the length of the esophagus, the sling fibers of the cardia, the esophageal hiatus tone, the positive intra-abdominal pressure, and the acute angle of the gastroesophageal angle of His. Let's see what is anti-reflux barrier. Normally, the lower esophageal sphincter exists as a zone of high pressure between the esophagus and the stomach. When the high pressure zone is lost, reflux occurs. The three components of high pressure zone are the resting pressure is greater than 8 millimeters of mercury. The overall length of the gastroesophageal junction should be more than 3 centimeters, and the intra-abdominal length of the esophagus should be greater than 1 centimeters. If any of these are absent, then reflux occurs. What is the etiology of gastroesophageal reflux disorder? Sliding hiatus hernia, alteration of rhinoesophageal ligament, altered obliquity of the gastroesophageal junction, reduced pinching action of the crust of the diaphragm, reduced lower esophageal sphincter pressure, altered transient relaxation period in the lower esophageal sphincter. What is the etiology of the reflux? It is raised intra-abdominal pressure, raised intragastric pressure, and gastric acid hyposecretion. This diagram shows the various mechanisms that are responsible for gastroesophageal reflux disorder. They are obesity, dietary factors like intake of chocolates, peppermint, spicy food, alcohol, smoking, and there's a defective esophageal clearance of the gastric acids which are refluxed into the esophagus. Abnormal lower esophageal sphincter, wherein there is a reduced tone of the lower esophageal sphincter and there is inappropriate relaxation. The presence of a hiatus hernia, delayed gastric emptying, increased intra-abdominal pressure, and reflux of acid pepsin bile. The pathophysiology of GERD. It occurs due to fundic distension and delayed gastric emptying. Lower esophageal sphincter is pulled distally by expanding the fundus. Squamous epithelium exposed to the gastric juice. Repeated exposure of the esophagus to the acid results in columnarization and the formation of Barrett's esophagus, which is a predisposing factor for carcinoma of the lower end of the esophagus. Extension of inflammation into the muscularis propria causes progressive loss in the length and the pressure of the lower esophageal sphincter, which is an apparent esophageal shortening, and there is loss of pressure over the intra-abdominal portion of the esophagus. The loss of lower esophageal sphincter leads to regurgitation, heartburn, and subsequent severe esophagitis. The spectrum of the disease theory: first, the patient will have non-erosive disease, which then becomes an erosive disease, which then transformed into a Barrett's esophagus, which is intestinal metaplasia, and there is columnarization of the lower esophageal portion, which might turn into a esophageal adenocarcinoma. The clinical presentation includes heartburn, which is pyrosis, 1 to 2 hours after eating, often at night, and which is relieved by antacid. Regurgitation, which is water brash, spontaneous return of gastric contents proximal to the GE junction, less well relieved with antacids, And some patients, about 40% of the patients present with dysphagia, that is difficulty with swallowing, which should prompt search for pathological condition. They also might present with hoarseness of voice or dysphonia and extra esophageal symptoms such as cough, expectoration, wheeze, breathlessness, or aspiration. The complications include peptic ulcer, hematemesis, stricture esophagus, Barrett's esophagus, adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, laryngopharyngeal complications, and respiratory complications. The various investigations to diagnose a patient with GERD are upper GI endoscopy, upper GI contrast studies, which is a barium meal, an ambulatory pH monitoring, which is the gold standard, and a esophageal manometry to monitor the lower esophageal sphincter pressures. How do you classify a patient with GERD? It is based on the Los Angeles classification for grading of erosive reflux esophagitis. Grade A, wherein there are one or more mucosal breaks not longer than 5 mm and none of which extends between the tops of the adjacent mucosal folds. Grade B, one or more mucosal breaks which are greater than 5 mm long but none of which exceeds between the tops of the two mucosal folds. Grade C, the mucosal breaks that extend between the tops of the or more mucosal folds but involves less than 75% of the esophageal circumference. Grade D, where the mucosal breaks involve 75% or more of the esophageal circumference. These are endoscopic pictures of patients with grade A, B, C, and D esophagitis. In the first picture, you can make out that there are ulcerations less than 5 mm which do not extend beyond the adjacent mucosal folds. Grade B, where they are greater than 5 mm but they are confined between the adjacent mucosal folds. Grade C and grade D is extensive ulcerations, which is based on 75% inclusion of the circumference of the esophagus. What is Barrett's esophagus? It is intestinal or gastric columnar metaplasia of the distal esophagus. It is diagnosed on upper GI endoscopy. It is a pre-malignant condition which leads to adenocarcinoma. Multiple biopsies are taken in the 4 quadrants of the esophagus to exclude malignancy. The types of hiatus hernia and paraesophageal hernias. Type 1 is sliding hernia, type 2 is true paraesophageal hernia, type 3 is mixed, type 4 is mixed plus other organs. The position of the gastroesophageal junction might be variable in a patient with sliding hiatus hernia. The contents are usually the cardia and the fundus of the stomach. There is no volvulus and spontaneous reduction of the hernia is very common. What is type 2 or true paraesophageal hernia? It is the gastroesophageal junction is intra-abdominal. The contents of the hernia includes fundus and the body. There is no volvulus, or that might be organoaxial volvulus. And spontaneous reduction is very uncommon. Grade 3 is mixed, wherein the gastroesophageal junction is positioned in the thoracic cavity. The hernia contents include the fundus and the body of the stomach. There is volvulus, usually organoaxial, that is along the axis of the organ, or mesoaxial, which is perpendicular to the axis of the stomach. Mixed plus other organ, wherein the gastroesophageal junction is in the intrathoracic cavity. It includes the fundus body along with other abdominal organs such as the spleen or the intestines. The patient usually has an organoaxial or a mesoaxial volvulus. These are the different types of hiatus hernia. One shows a picture of a sliding hiatus hernia, and the second one shows a paraesophageal hernia, and the third one shows a type 3 hernia. Upper GI contrast studies. Only 40% of the patients with classic symptoms of GERD will have reflux observed on radiography. It is used to assess the esophageal shortening, the hiatus hernia, paraesophageal hernia, strictures or obstructing lesion, bleeding or corkscrewing, which might be seen in motility disorders such as, we've already spoken about motility disorders in the previous class, such as nutcrackers, esophagus, achalasia, cardia, and other motility disorders. This is just a contrast barium study of a patient with the first picture showing a type 1 hiatus hernia or a sliding hiatus hernia, and the picture on the right shows a paraesophageal hernia with herniation of the fundus and the body of the stomach, and the one on the left cornermost shows type 4, wherein it is a mixed with other abdominal organs, that is the intestines are also herniate along with the stomach into the thoracic cavity. Ambulatory 24-hour pH monitoring. It is the gold standard for the diagnosis of GERD. It quantifies the actual time the esophageal mucosa is exposed to the gastric juice. It measures the ability of the esophagus to clear the reflux acid. And we've spoken about the measurement of ambulatory 24-hour pH monitoring in the previous classes, wherein an electrode is placed about 5 centimeters above the gastroesophageal junction, and it is continuously the acid pH exposure of the esophagus is continuously monitored. It correlates esophageal acid exposure with the patient's symptoms. Without abnormal pH study, surgery is unlikely to benefit the patient, and that is why it is very important to get a patient to perform an endoscopy and to look for any changes at the gastroesophageal junction. It gives a composite score, highly sensitive and specific for the diagnosis of GERD. Johnson-DeMeester normal values for esophageal pH less than 4. The total percentage of time for which the esophagus is exposed to a pH less than 4 is 1.49%. Why do you have to perform a esophageal manometry? To rule out other esophageal motility disorders and to also rule out esophageal body dysfunction such as achalasia, aperostasis, which should change the management. And this is a picture of the normal esophageal manometry. Management. The treatment goals for GERD are to eliminate the symptoms, heal the esophagitis, manage or prevent complications, and to maintain remission. The management includes lifestyle modifications, which is the cornerstone of GERD therapy. Elevate the head end of the bed by about 4 to 6 inches. Avoid eating within 2 to 3 hours of the bedtime. Lose weight if overweight. Stop smoking and modify diet. Eat more frequent but smaller meals. Avoid fatty or fried food, peppermint, chocolate, alcohol, carbonated beverages, coffee and tea. And the use of OTC medications. Moving on to the medical management. Various antacids with silicone are used, which are defoaming agents. Antacid with alginate, which form a platform on top of the gastric juice. Prokinetic drugs like bethanechol, metoclopramide, domperidone, which enhance the motility and improves the clearance. Anti-secretory drugs such as cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, omeprazole, lansoprazole, and rabeprazole, wherein cimetidine, ranitidine, and famotidine are histamine H2 receptor blockers, and omeprazole, lansoprazole, and rabeprazole, and pantoprazole, esomeprazole, are proton pump inhibitors. Mucosal protectors such as carbenoxolone with an alginate or sucralfate or misoprostol. The surgical indications include need for continuous drug treatment or escalating dose of PPIs, relatively young patient, financial burden or non-compliance with PPE, and the patient choice. The principles of surgery include establish effective LES pressure, position the LES within the abdomen, wherein the sphincter is under positive intra-abdominal pressure, close any associated hiatal defects. The key points of surgery include the complete dissection of the esophageal hiatus and both the pleura, mobilization of the gastric fundus, closure of the associated hiatal defect, creation of a tensionless gastric wrap around the esophagus, 50 to 60 French intraesophageal dilator, limiting the length of the wrap to 1.5 to 2 centimeters and stabilizing the wrap. Laparoscopic Nissen's fundoplication is the gold standard management for hiatus hernia and other GERD at present. Over here you see the first step wherein the short gastric vessels are taken down so that the greater curvature of the stomach is freed, and then later in the second picture you can make out that the crural hiatus is dissected all around. The length of the esophagus abdominal esophagus is increased to about 3 centimeters, and a wrap is taken around, and Nissen's fundoplication, floppy Nissen's fundoplication is performed. This is an algorithm for the management of a patient with GERD. And this is the take-home message, wherein PPIs work to control the symptoms and esophagitis but will require lifelong treatment. Successful anti-reflux surgery is based on an abnormal 24-hour pH score, typical GERD symptoms, and symptomatic improvement in response to acid suppression therapy. Having anti-reflux surgery is a patient-centered decision with a risk-benefit ratio that can really only be weighed by the patient and not the doctor.